So as Mateusz said before, I'm now taking the point, but I'm not as talkative as Mateusz, but I will do my best. Yes. We have a quite interesting topic during this session of our webinar, so I think that we will have a good discussion. And as Mateusz also said during the first session, we want to have some kind of brainstorming. All your voices are welcome. So as Mateusz said before, I'm now taking the point. But I'm not as talkative as Mateusz, but I will do my best. Yes. We have a quite interesting topic during this session of our webinar, so I think that we will have a good discussion. And as Mateusz also said during the first session, we want to have some kind of brainstorming. All your voices are welcome. So my second question regarding my third question regarding the international system is the question about the process of globalization. Namely, we should ask whether the corona crisis will stop the globalization, whether the corona crisis will lead us to some kind of deglobalization, or will we face something quite opposite, like for example another wave of globalization, as we all, for example, I think that we all heard already that there are some international transnational companies that have already taken over some smaller companies which had already failed due to the economic crisis. So that is also a good question. Will we have another wave of globalization, or will we have some kind of deglobalization? And I think that is a quite important question. And additionally, we should ask about the Chinese statecraft here, because some IR scholars have already shown that COVID-19 may emerge as a kind of opportunity for the Chinese statecraft because of the internationalization, because of the market expansion, especially because of the fact that China has become a provider of some global goods, and that is of paramount importance when we take into account the fact that some other major powers seem to stay inward focused now. Yeah. So I think that's also a very important question regarding the COVID pandemic and so on. And the last question regarding the international system is the question about global governance mechanisms, because despite some collective actions against the coronavirus, the corona crisis has also shown that not all countries are ready to face this challenge. Yeah. So we see some inequalities between states and within the global governance as well. Yeah, and that was the first part. And the second part, which is related to some domestic politics issues, I have divided this part into 3 dimensions. However, you can also find some other dimensions of domestic politics. So the issue is open, I would say. The first one is political dimension, the second one is economic, and the third one is social dimension. according to the first dimension, according to the political dimension. Here we have the question about the new kind of statism. And I think that we should ask here whether the coronavirus pandemic boosts a statism of another kind, more like Big Brother and less than, let's say, Great Society. Because one of the most enduring effects of the corona crisis could be the fact that some authoritarian regimes may turn harder, as we all know that in times of crisis, citizens accept the strengthening of the political power, which then can take the advantage of this situation. Yeah, for example, by restricting some civil liberties and so on. So we saw this situation in some countries, also in Europe. Yeah. The second dimension is the economic dimension, and here we have also a big question, which is the question about the welfare state, which is the question about some possibilities of national states. We can say that also that is the question about the extraction capacity as well of the state, because we will have, or we have already, a big economic and social crisis that is now sometimes compared even to a war, because it's not only economic crisis but also social crisis, and it's a kind of crisis that brings not only a supply but also a demand shock. Yeah, so that's why it's sometimes compared to a war, not only to a Great Depression or economic depression, but to a situation of war. So that's important. And here we have the question, of course, about the possible support of the state and a possible help of the state to some local businesses that, for example, have failed. But they have failed not because of the fact that they were or they have been too weak, or they have been weak, or they have been too weak to meet the requirements of economic competition, but they have failed because of the lockdown. Yeah. So here goes the question regarding the possible help and some possible actions taken by the state. And that was the economic dimension. And the last dimension is the social dimension, because here we have also the question about the welfare state. We have the question about the possible redefinition of the scope of social support for citizens. And we have also here the question about some digital environment and its impact of everyday lives. Yeah. So that's I think the most the most complicated, I think, dimension here. And of course, all of these questions, I think that we may include all of them in one very old question. Do we remain trapped in the same strategy as ever, namely, a full return to the national sphere is not possible anymore, yeah, but the conditions and political will to reform or to improve the global governance mechanism are also missing. So the question is, where are we now? Where are the nation state? Where is the nation state now? Is it stronger than before the crisis, or is it not stronger, or is it not strong enough to face this challenge of corona crisis? Yeah. So I think that we can start a discussion. Okay. So Mehmet, you are the first.
too much questions, which is very interesting, and which is very interesting.
You can choose one or two, of
Yeah,
course. Yeah,
I mean,
you're not obliged to answer each of them, of course. Yeah.
Of course, and as you already said, all of these questions are connected to each other, actually. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to separate them in a sense. So, to be honest, I'm not able to generalize these things because I'm too much stuck to my own experiences during this pandemic period. From that point of view, I can try to answer some questions.
Of course.
Especially the policies that were implemented by Turkish governments, where I'm from and where I lived. And it seems that the social contract and the Leviathan type of social contract stays over there, actually. Normally, in normal times, there's always a conflict between some part of Turkish society and governments. We have experienced that for almost last 2 decades. Turkish society demands more fundamental freedoms, and Erdogan government tries to restrict them. And but during this pandemic, the picture just reversed.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. The society mostly demands more restrictions, actually. The full isolations, full restrictions, the society demanded that, but the governments, for the sake of protecting the economic growth, the government did not implement too much restrictions, actually. Which was, as you said, quite interesting. And in my opinion, as I said already in the beginning of my sentence, the social contract remains there. I mean, the citizens were too much volunteers to give up their freedoms, but government, I mean, in a sense, they some kind restricted, some kind not, but the demand came from the society itself. And they criticized the government being too much new, being too much, I mean, free, relaxed, I can say. So the society demanded a too strong nation state in that sense, actually. And this society didn't demand too much from international community, actually. The society demanded things from the government, the nation state, the national government itself. And yeah, I think in the end, the government strengthened itself. I mean, strong, I can't say strength, but it legitimized its authority. The government legitimized its authority in that sense. And regarding the international society, I think this leads to globalization because nation states are still the first address people who ask the assistance, who ask protection. So if there's a trade-off between the globalization and empowerment of nation states, I think this is a way of the globalization. So the COVID-19 leads, may lead or may I mean, grow to the globalization process. That's what I can say at this point.
Okay. Thank you. So on the one hand, it's very interesting what you said, that the Turkish government didn't want to introduce as many restrictions as the society wanted. However, this situation, of course, proves the idea that during the times of crisis, the society wants the support from the state. Yeah, the society wants the presence of the state power. Yeah, of the power
Yes.
of the state. Yes.
And only state powers, not international, not at the
yes, yes. But yeah, okay. Only the state support, not the international support. Yes, that support is wasn't needed. Let's say. Okay, good. Brisson, do you want to add something for this?
Yeah, first of all, again, I am living in the state of denial. So excuse me for maybe not being so, how to say, so much into this COVID topic. But I think there is nothing new. I mean, everything mentioned in the literature, academic discussions, or in the, let's say, quality media, all the commentators, observations, already academic studies and articles coming in. Everything, Magdalena, you just raised are not new topics, right? What is the state doing exactly? The state-citizen relationship, the surveillance society, the distance and lack of solidarity and increasing mistrust within societies. What is capitalism doing to us? Privatization of medicine, drugs, vaccines, hospitals, and people dying in the gates or hallways of hospitals, and blacks, minorities, women, poor, elderly, suffering. Even ageism was not new, right? I mean, the youth versus elderly. And some of these issues are actually 200 years old or 400 years old. And as a person being very much against the organism called state, I really wonder whether countries with more state actually did well, or whether countries with no state did better. Like I am living in one of the countries that state really did not want to do anything. It's Netherlands. And we are doing quite good. And there are the applications nobody wants to use in this society, any application in their phone. And same with Sweden, I think. So even the notion of state is not everywhere prevalent. Some doctors say, okay, this is what you need to do. Okay, people follow them. However, the old inequalities, the old issues, structural injustices, everything that globalization caused or took away from us, such as climate change, pollution, or everything globalization actually contributed in our lives. Like I wear a nice t-shirt coming from China. It's still the same player, same actors, same old stories. So I wonder whether this is really, how to say, a mistake to take COVID as a rupture or transformatory issue. Because in that case, we really make the mistake as if the previous times were amazing. There is this amazing Indian author and academician, Arundhati Roy. She wrote an article in Financial Times 2 months ago, and she said at the end of her article, nothing can be worse than going back to normal. So I think as academicians, what we need to do is just not to go back where we were. So many things were wrong. So many institutions were wrong. And we were going in a very wrong direction with COVID or without COVID. It doesn't matter anything. Are we going to choose humanity? Are we going to choose generosity? Are we going to choose solidarity? Or are we going to lock ourselves in our houses and do this will be our communication with our students? I mean, I think we have to do self-reflection a lot more. And so hopefully, I also want, in my heart, I support all the anarchist movements everywhere going on right now against COVID measures, because we also need resistance on daily basis. It is another important issue. For me, what will happen to state does not matter. Nothing is going to happen to this state. They will survive most probably. But what I can do to weaken it, to resist it, to say no to it, that is important. And also I want a more fair place. Before COVID also, it didn't change anything. A clean environment, a fair place that people can reach medicine or a vaccine with no knowledge and power nexus anymore. And states are not classified according to some statistics, like how many COVID cases you have on daily basis. So these discourses should be immediately deconstructed. And another thing, Magdalena, you said something, you asked two questions, state strong or weak?
Yeah.
State was never, in a way, strong. In another perspective, state was always weak. That's why it always needed to create, to construct an enemy, to reinforce its power. There was always an enemy. So the state was never secure in the first place.
Yes,
and
yes, of course.
Just another insecurity they created to reinforce their powers. Hopefully they will fight it.
Okay, thank you for this opinion. It's very, I think it's very interesting and thought-provoking as well. Yeah, to all of us, I think, because as far as I understand, you see the COVID as a kind of sign. Yeah, a sign for us to think about human collectivity, human solidarity as well. Maybe a factor that can, for example, generate some sorry for that word, global reconstruction, but not in the terms of global governance, global institutions, and so on, but
or even more provocatingly, we should not think in terms of COVID. What we were supposed to do, we should do anyway. I mean, if we support Hong Kong, we have to support Hong Kong. We had to support Hong Kong yesterday, we have to support it today also. If we support, let's say, universal income or free medicine, we have to support it today again. So those who have all these principles have not changed. Those who were against surveillance are still against surveillance. I mean, nobody changed their mind like, oh, now there is a virus, I want surveillance suddenly. No, everybody is, I'm still against it. And no reason is big enough to make me put an app in this form. So these are the principles we should continue thinking and maintain. COVID shouldn't change anything. If it changes, then I think our principles were in the first place very weak.
And that also leads me to another idea that came to my mind at the beginning of the pandemic. That is the question, that is the idea of trust. Because are we still human beings when we are still afraid of another person. Yeah? Is he or she already infected or not? Should I be afraid of he or she? Yeah, and so on. So that's very very important issue regarding the whole human community. Yeah. So yeah, okay. Thank you very much for this. I think quite different, but very thought-provoking voice. Yes. Yes. So let's give Roman a chance to engage.
Thank you, Magdalena. Well, frankly speaking, this is not the subject of my research, COVID, but answering your question, I can say that the question regarding where is the state, where are the states now relative to where they were before the pandemic? I would say that they are at the same position because this crisis doesn't differ somehow from other kinds of crises which the states faced recently. No different from migration crisis, for example, if you're talking about Eurozone crisis.
Terrorism.
Yes, and so on. States react differently due to different levels of affectedness by the problem, how dependent they are on the problem first. Second, how capable they are to deal with. And third, in terms of preferences. Preferences can also diverge, societal preferences regarding the crisis. So they will react differently, and we can hardly speak about the global solidarity because those who are really affected, they will deal with those problems, busy with dealing with those problems. Those who are not affected, they will try to avoid additional costs and so on. And answering the question regarding the reaction of the state, whether it is reactive or whether the state is reactive or proactive regarding the crisis, we can check this by looking at the patterns of socioeconomic regulations inside the state. And empirically, we can proxy this by looking at the varieties of capitalism, for example. I mean, the reaction of the state depends on whether it is coordinated market economy or liberal market economy, for example, in terms of whole and soft case considerations, for example, right? And we can see this on the example of German and US reaction to the COVID pandemics, for example. Both are G7 countries, both are open economies, both are globalized with a considerable population, but we see that a lot of victims are and the level of deaths from the pandemics is much higher in the US than in Germany, because in Germany all came together in discussing the problem. Business, government, healthcare organizations, NGOs, academics, they all sat together and tried to coordinate and see what they can do, and it was quite successful. While in the liberal market economies like United States, for example, the situation was based on the principle the winner takes it all. So market dictates the developments. So and this is what Birsen, I think, mentioned. This is this is capitalism and how market really determined the situation, who won from this won and who who didn't have any opportunities to deal with the crisis, lost, and state could hardly intervene because this is according to the market laws. So liberal versus coordinated market economies would be nice proxy to my mind to check and to foresee the possible management of the COVID crisis by any state.
Thank you. Thank you, Roman. I agree with you when it comes to the question of open economy and so on. However, even the American government did decide to offer some help for some local businesses and so on. So it wasn't the situation wasn't as usual during some economic crisis. I think that we should also think about this. So we should think about some states that are associated with liberal economy that nevertheless have decided to help some local businesses and to help citizens, for example, who, for example, had lost their jobs. Yes, so even the American government decided to help its citizens during the pandemic. Of course, everything depends on the duration of the pandemic. Yeah, how long it will it stay with us? Yeah, how long the virus will be with us? Yes, and how long should we be locked down? Yeah. So that's I think that's the very important point here. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that I just wanted to answer the question of why, for example, the reaction in Germany was proactive, but in the United States was rather reactive, and why it led to so high level of unemployment in the United States and almost zero negative effects on the economic situation. I mean, employment markets in Germany.
In Germany, yeah. And here goes the question regarding the state's capacity. Yeah, the statecraft. Here goes the question regarding the extraction capacity as well, I think. Yeah, so yeah, and together with that goes the question regarding the state's agency, yeah, and its ability to help its citizens, yeah, because as Mehmet said a few minutes before, the society in that kind of situation always wants the help and the support from the state, from states agencies. Yes, so that's I think that's the point here. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Roman, and we have Rebecca next.
Thank you, and thank you for your introduction, Magdalena, and also your views, Roman, Birsen, Mehmet. From a small state perspective, those questions are very, very interesting, and because obviously they have to do, they touch upon power and capabilities, and of course they touch upon how subjective terms like weak state or strong state can be. If we look at small states and the pandemic, small states have performed really well during the pandemic, and even better than major powers, both at the domestic and the international level. We have diplomatic initiatives from small states. We have small states acting like forerunners, even unlike suspects like Taiwan. but also South Korea, Singapore, Greece, Austria.
Some Balkan states as well.
Yes, so we have to talk about the resilience of small states. At the same time, the COVID pandemic, it might not be a rupture, but it will have consequences at both the domestic and the international level. And for example, the COVID had accelerated challenges for small states. For example, it has challenged the multilateral order on which small states rely for support and for small states are pro international organizations, pro cooperation, and we saw that during the pandemic this order was for one more time upset. Also, unlike previous crises, and I think this is a very interesting aspect of the pandemic crisis, unlike previous crises, the economic crisis or the migration crisis in Europe, states, all states, but my angle is from the all states' point of view, had to cope with the crisis alone. During the economic crisis, Greece was disciplined by its partners and the EU institutions. During the migration crisis, every state had to follow EU directions. But now states were alone and had to cope with the crisis alone. And it's interesting to study EU member states' policies from this perspective. And actually states and even small states tried to influence EU policies on this front. So although we don't know if COVID is a rupture, I think its consequences offer a very fertile ground for research.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. I think that's it's also quite intriguing voice here in this debate, because yeah, it's important that you said that all states were alone, yeah, because I think that each state had to deal with a different kind of situation, because the situation of Italy was different than the situation of Greece, for example. The situation of Poland also was different than the situation, for example, of Germany or the United States and so on. Yeah, we were all in. Yeah, would you like to add something?
Yes, but you can conclude, and then I don't want to interrupt you.
Okay. So we all have. How to say it? We all had the same problem, but the situation in front of the decision-making process was different for each state. I would say, and of course, some states did really manage to do or to manage or to deal with this crisis better than others. And here is the question: why some states were able to deal with this problem, and others have more problems with this challenge? Yes. So that's the question. For example, for here very interesting is the situation of Balkan states, which I think managed to face this challenge quite well. Yes. Okay, so go on.
Yeah. Also, there is another aspect concerning the European Union, that the health policy, the response to the pandemic, had not to be coordinated by the EU. Is out of the EU
Common
duties.
policy, yeah, common
Yes,
policy.
common policy. So. And this is a problem with our expectations as EU citizens, because we all were expecting a response from the EU, but for the EU at the beginning, this was not an issue. It was a national issue.
Yes.
So it's the capabilities expectations gap again. But let me add something else. I'm also curious, and I find very intriguing the issue of the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, or of the management of the COVID-19 pandemic in states, in the politics of the US or Brazil or the UK, and what will happen with post-truth politics, populism, and if we are going to see a change or not.
Oh, that's also a good question, because there are, of course, some voices that the coronavirus is not real. Yeah, it's only discursive. So we have the virus only within the discursive sphere. Yes. So that's also, I think it's strongly related with your question. Yeah, with your question regarding the post-truth era and so on. Do we really have the COVID-19 pandemic or do we only have the discourse about, or the discourse regarding the pandemic? Yeah. Okay. And last but not least, Mateusz, my co-chair.
So my first reflection is that, like, it's good to hear intelligent people speaking. Like, yeah, I don't know, I really enjoyed, like, listening to you guys and, like, trying to tackle with this like, to an extent I must agree with Brisen that basically the pandemic is an existential problem of each and every one of us, right? But still we are trying to cope with it intellectually, trying to make sense of those events one way or another, and like, hearing to you all, like, it gives me hope to an extent. Now, this is the one general remark I have. The second general remark is that, as I'm thinking right now, it would be very hard to, like, properly implement the COVID problematic into the publication itself. Because, like, seeing you, how much you are intellectually triggered by this as a problem for you to understand, to describe, to cope with, I would actually say that maybe, like, after meeting in Thessaloniki and getting on with the publication, maybe we'll just sit down and say, okay, now, like, a little bit more time passed, we have a greater perspective, so let's try to do another project. I don't know, I'm just saying, because whereas the anthropomorphism, as we talked about it, I see, like, how you resonated with the idea, but in a way that it's, like, complementary to what you have in mind for your initial research project. The COVID actually opens up the whole new space of ideas, of discourses, of research problems, basically. And I would say that, like, we will have to, me and Magdalena will have to think about it, and then, like, after we came to any conclusion, we will ask for your opinions about it in one way or another, for sure. But, like, for now, I would say that caution as far as the scope creep, I think it's called in game development industry, like the idea that you add new functionalities to your product, right? So I would say, like, the wonderful responses we got from you about the COVID problematic makes me be very cautious about including it into the proposed publication. in all honesty. Like, I would very much like to hear your thoughts about it, or read what do you have to say about this problematic, but not necessarily in the book that we envisioned with Magdalena at this point. Like, we will need to discuss it. We'll need to share with you what we strategized, what we brainstormed, and let's see what came of it. This is the first thing. The second thing, the third thing, Brizen, there is a play by Peter Burns called Red Noses. My parents, both of them are actors, and to an extent I was like brought up in the theater, and I still like they were playing this play like as a kid. When I was a kid, I know I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and this is the play, that the subject of this play is a plague that is happening during medieval times, and like the existential tragedy of this situation of people dying on the streets, make people do different things. And like the subject of this play is basically this idea shared by a group of people that we can create a monastic order of jesters that laugh in those hard times to bring some, to soothe other people's, right? To soothe their hearts, to make them be able to cope with this unimaginable tragedy. And like, seriously, Brizen, I would strongly recommend you to read this play, because it's like it's a really good drama as it is from the perspective of literature. But like what you were saying about how the pandemic is basically this moment of truth for our own devotion about the social, how we think it should be structured and the stuff. On the one person, it's seriously like what you were saying was in a way very optimistic, in the sense of this optimism or people goodness that is present in hopefully all of us, and it was present basically on this on those red noses, those gestures that wanted to make fun out of the plague, to basically make people cope with it. Okay, but like the drama itself is pretty pessimistic, because the end of this group is basically like being accused of heresy and being burned at stake, right? And like, as far as I am personally a realist, right, what you are saying is what I would like to reality to be, but I'm afraid it is not like that. Okay, like this classical realist thinking that like we have a state, we have organization to be able uh, to cover or what is bad in our nature as human beings, right? And without those organizations, without those power structures, the evil that is present in us as well will just only come out and play, and things will even be worse, right? That's a very basic realist thinking about being a human in a society, in political grouping, right? So like, but yeah, I like to hear these kind of voices, because they combat my inherent pessimism to an extent. So like, thank you very much for your contribution, and seriously, like, if you like, I will try to find this play in some PDF format in English, so if you're interested, I'll just send it to you, because like I said, it's a very good drama. Like, seriously, it's a very fine piece of literature. And like, although we are all social scientists, I think that we should be also like people of humanities to an extent. Like, we shouldn't forget about the art and how it's intertwined with like all of us trying to think about what is social. But like, I don't want to talk too much as well, but like to go to my conclusion, like, I think that COVID, as it is and here is like the anthropomorphization or personalization, that if you consider the stateness or state's capacity for extraction of resources whether they be like their own population, like, you know, strategic culture, all the jazz. So you can equal it to will of an individual, right? So what is the extraction capacity or the stateness for a state? This is the will for a person, right? If you want to go with this personalistic or anthropomorphizing analogy. And then like I would consider then thinking about the pandemics is like a test of will. Okay, so is this state person, right, actually possesses a will to properly tackle with this particular problem that is the COVID, right? Because this is like for me this is also like a normative problem, because like if I dabble in neoclassical theory, and albeit I'm pretty critical about it, there are some important points, and I wouldn't mind to do some critical reading of this extraction category as actually an oppressive concept developed within social sciences and aimed at like oppression or suppression of emancipation drives inherent in us, our human as a human beings. You know, like this is the critical part in my thinking. But regardless, right? I would say that thinking about what empirically per se happened during the pandemics will tell me a lot about this stateless extraction capability and such. And this is like super interesting what Rebecca told us to an extent. So like we have two things, right? We have those material capabilities like territory, you know, like economy, how big it is, how strong is the military of particular country, how big of its population, right? But we also have this ideational quality of how well it's run, the country itself, right? The extraction capability. And although like both of those things matter in your day-to-day international politics, with the possibility of war, albeit it's like, you know, less and less relevant, it still looms somewhere. So it is relevant in the context of COVID. It actually showed that what is important for the state to cope with certain problem is not necessarily its material capabilities, but its quality as the how well it's governed, or even even not how well it's governed, but like what is its internal structure that helps it cope with a certain problem, right? Because we can say that there are countries that we could probably intuitively say that are well governed, and on the one hand, some countries have a great problem with COVID, measured by the number of deaths, the percent of population that had underwent the disease and such. But we have equally well governed state that actually coped much better. And how it's possible? How is it so? And also, like we have traditional great powers, okay, or the states that are trying to achieve this status, and actually that were penalized for their status of being great powers because they were hit by the pandemics more than the small states, right? And what all those things say us about like those power hierarchies we supposedly to have in the international realm, right? If so. So like I said, the COVID problematic is like super interesting, and it is a problem we all you know, personally, you know, even on the personal level, we need to all make sense of it one way or another, right? But like I said, from me, like hearing all your interesting voices on the subject, I'm only getting more and more hesitant to actually include this thematic to our book. Well,
Mhm.
that's basically
Mhm.
like as a word of caution.
Okay. Um, what should I add here? Oh yeah, Roman. Okay. Would you like to add something?
Just a short suggestion. Sorry for interrupting.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could probably include this thematic into the book as a separate chapter, which is dealing with the issue of COVID and the role of state in dealing with COVID. So and describe and express and highlight different perspectives, international, from the international point of view and from the domestic point of view, and all these external and endogenous factors to be expressed to deal with the if you want to write the book around this state, then to include this thematic not as a part of every or some
chapters.
topics, but as a separate chapter.
And I have also one idea regarding this issue, that we should simply narrow down the scope of our topic, and, for example, focus only on some aspects of COVID-19. Yes, not about the whole question or the whole issue of the COVID pandemic, but only on some aspects of this pandemic, just like Roman said, maybe on only we should focus maybe only on the role of the state during the COVID pandemic. Yeah, but I think that as you, Mateusz, said before, we have to discuss it once again. Yeah, and try to narrow down the scope of the topic regarding the COVID-19. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I can just nod my head and say, yeah, of course.
Okay. Okay. Would anyone add something to our discussion? So letting some.
To ask a question.
Yeah, of course.
So if the book project or the publication project is not focused on COVID-19, so we do not have to submit new abstracts as long as our already submitted abstracts deal with the state and the role of the state, international relations, or the interplay of the domestic with international, blah blah blah.
Basically, yes. I was trying to communicate it in the emails, right? That, like, from our perspective, and as far as me and Magdalena, well, it was actually Magdalena's hard work to communicate with the ASA organizers, right? So basically, like, in the end, like, you are not required to change anything in your initial propositions at all. Like, like, also you are not required to take part in this book project. And like, I'm super happy listening to your responses that you're actually interested in it. Most of you pretty much interested, and like, I'm super happy about it. But like, from the perspective of, like, formal perspective, okay, you are not required to do any of those things, right? Include those additional problematic into your research proposals and take part in the book project, because, like, all in all, like, EWISs are basically a way to make help scholar make their texts better, whether they are, like, taking part in some additional projects made by the workshop conveners, right? So it's like your goodwill and your interest that you are showing in Magdalena's and me idea for putting those contributions into the book, and it makes me happy. But like, you are not required to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it like a good enough reply to your question, Rebecca?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
if I may, because Roman actually actually made me think about like that, you know, like book as itself, it's a one thing, right? Like the chapters, your contributions and such. And I am afraid that this idea may be a little bit too eccentric for like publishers, and that's also a thing, right? We need to, me and Magda, we need to be able to interest the publisher with with our idea for the book containing your contributions. Most likely we will get the funding for this book from our respective universities. Me and Magda were talking about it a little bit, so it should help. But still, like this book need to be admitted for a certain you know, edited line of works. We'll probably be aiming for Routledge, right, Magda?
Yes, yes, yes.
This is our first pick. So, but like all this have been said, like I would very much like to, like if we would to be tackle the COVID problematic in the book itself, I think that like having a round table discussion about it, similar to the one we had right now, maybe a little bit more structure, maybe, you know, like a little bit thought over as far as our points that we are making, you know, like adding this transcript of this discussion to the book, I think would be awesome. Like really, because it would be interesting read, basically, I would say. Maybe not, you know, like properly social scientific with like a lot of quotations and stuff like that, but it should be interesting to the reader, right? Because I think we are all smart people. We have good ideas how to grasp this problem posed by the pandemics. We are coming from different you know, backgrounds as far as, you know, philosophical roots of our thinking, but still, like, we all have very interesting thoughts to bring to the table. And like the transcript of such discussion, like from my, well, maybe a little bit idealistic perspective, would be like a great value added to the book itself, right? Showing that like we are not only like thinking in the proper scientific terms, following proper research design, you know, legitimizing ourselves as scholars using certain methodologies and all that jazz, but we also have something relevant to say to other people, you know, as people that are basically have this well thought over, you know. So maybe that this can be like a very like brief or sketchy idea for how to include this problematic into the book itself, you know, that okay, we are all of us are giving our contributions in the form of the chapter of the book, right? But also we are contributing as our contributors to the general debate of the problem of COVID and how it relates to the problematic we are also mentioning in our texts. I don't know, how do you feel about this kind of an idea? And like I said, I'm afraid it might be a little bit eccentric for the publisher, you know. But
I think, at least that's my opinion. There are right now at least 200 books projects on COVID. So nothing original in it, I should say. I mean, unless we come up with really an original idea that nobody thought about. But I was involved in many different networks, different meetings. So many people contacted. Post-colonial reading of COVID, be it globalization, be it end of capitalism, beginning of, I don't know, socialism. I mean, environment, climate change. There are so many. Honestly, I don't see any publishing house interested in this topic right now because it is, let's say, they will be also all around.
Yes, the topic is quite trendy.
It's very trendy. And that's also, for me, kind of, maybe it's good, then you can just stop and give it a time so it matures. And then you can do some reflection on it, on the academic study about COVID, and also the general situation in the world society, because I'm curious what kind of publications we will see in a couple of months, and then we have something maybe. But right now, I don't think that it's an excellent moment to publish something on COVID, because everybody is thinking the same thing right now.
Yes. So anyway, we have to think about it once again, try to figure out some new ideas regarding this topic in order to make it more trendy and more interesting than other publications regarding this issue. Okay, we are slowly coming to an end. Oh, Roman, do you want to add something?
May I probably also as a suggestion for the book, what if we all if we contribute to the book, we each of us then publish a chapter in the book about own topic and about the relation of this topic to the role of state, just attaching this topic to the possible book title suggested by Mateusz, like "Does the Black Box Matter?" for example. And each of us highlights own problematic, own topic, and attach it to the state, answering at the end the question how exactly the topic is attached to the state. Does the black box matter or no? And in which way does it matter? And then your Mateusz, your contribution would be, your chapter would be on anthropology, anthropology, and also you would then write about the role of state from the standpoint of different theorists who mention the state as the person. And your contribution, Magdalena, would be then about the COVID crisis and the role of state in dealing with the COVID crisis. So it would be also attached to the role of state. So every contribution would be attached to the role of state. But in addition, then as you, Mateusz and Magdalena, as editors, for example, I don't know what is the idea, but you would make the introduction chapter and concluding chapter, and in this chapter you would then shortly introduce our contribution, contribution from our topics to well, I missed the point. I mean, you would shortly then mention how exactly the topic of each of us relates to the anthropomorphization and COVID thematic, probably, if it is relevant. So shortly, how it would be relevant.
Yes, honestly, actually, this is the idea behind the EWIS workshop also, right? So going back to the original idea, I was also thinking it was partly about it. So I was also hoping that the group comes together, even though we didn't do it in Brussels, we can still do it online. And we don't have to wait for next summer for the publication. We can just make the workshop earlier on Zoom. And then think about the state and black box common ideas we have. So can we have a framework for a possible publication? And then we are in Thessaloniki if everything goes well.
Yes.
We will maybe be over with it, and then we can discuss a second project even.
Or yes, or in Thessaloniki we can only, for example, summarize and only polish our chapters and bring.
I don't know how much time you have in the summer, you guys, you two as editors. But if you just send us emails now for our abstract for a publication, and then you can work on them, to see whether a publication is possible based on those abstracts. If not, then not. If possible, if you have time in the summer, maybe till the end of August or till end of September, I don't know your teaching schedules, proposal can be ready. And if you send it, they respond usually within 3 months, right? Public Routledge or Palgrave.
Yes, that's yes. I think that's the best idea, I think. However, I have to say that the proposition of Roman, is good, but the chapter regarding the COVID pandemic and the role of the state would be extremely long, and I will have to narrow it down for sure. However, the whole idea regarding the book, regarding all the chapters, was quite interesting, and taking into account what Brisson said, yeah, it makes sense to me. Mateusz?
I agree,
Oh,
and
yeah,
I
Rebecca.
think what Roman suggested makes sense, and it's much more focused, and I think it is very well tied up with the title that Mateusz has proposed, and with our initial submissions too. So it's quite straightforward. And I really agree with Birsen that if you have time, you can pitch the idea to different publishing houses. I think if we are successful with the first one, it's okay, but usually it takes more than one. So we can then write up the chapters, submit around spring, and then use the Thessaloniki workshop as our platform to police and to present our work, final comments, and send it for publication, hopefully after the workshop.
After the workshop, yes.
In
Great.
a year from now, actually, more or less. And it will be earlier.
Yeah, I think that 1 year is a realistic term. Yeah.
So basically, like we will be able to publish it more or less after the workshop itself, right? Everybody will do the last polishes on their chapters, as far as we got input from every other person during the.
I think
Yes.
it's tangible, and also please keep in mind that I'm speaking with the organizer hat now. Keep in mind that our intention is to open the workshops for some new abstracts. So we might have some new submissions, which means new chapters. So I think it might make sense to wait for publishing, for sending our final manuscript after the workshop.
Because personally, I think it's just me being a little bit ADHD. I would do it now. I mean, why are we waiting? Because we were supposed to be prepared for the workshop, right? I mean, we have proposals, we have ideas, and maybe some ideas will be old next year. And I mean, we were supposed to do this anyway. And in the workshop, if it was going to take place, we were going to talk about the publication. So I have time. Interestingly, this online teaching gave me lots of extra time. I am right now involved in a book that editing with a colleague, and just in 2 weeks we sent invite, and more than 20 people sent their abstracts, and Routledge immediately said that they want to publish it. So in 2 weeks. I think summer is an excellent time for us, and we are so bored from teaching. Everybody wants to do something, and no conference is taking place. Everybody has abstracts. Everybody has ideas,
Yeah.
And maybe within 3 months, we will have the first draft of the book. It's going super fast. And I am involved in another edited book project. It's also going very well. So I don't know how much time you have again or how much you need a publication, but it doesn't have to be this group. You can also send it in your networks, just a call. Even on Twitter, we did that. On Twitter, we said, are you interested?
It's up to Magdalena and Mateusz. I'm all in to follow their timetable.
Yeah, so I think that we can prepare something, let's say some offer to the Radlich, and anyway, so we will have a new call for proposal before Thessaloniki, and I think that it would be possible that somebody join us in 1 year, yeah. So we will have almost finished book in Thessaloniki, but if somebody join us, that I think that won't be a problem, yeah. And so I don't see the problem here, yeah. So I think that anyway we should work on the structure of the book, and I think that it's a good idea of Brisson that maybe we should prepare something and send to the publisher, yeah, and that will, I think, accelerate our work, that we will have something focused, something which is narrowed down and so on, and we will have something to work on it, yes. I think it's quite motivating, yeah.
So basically, I would only add to what Magdalena said, that you may expect, like in next week or two, basically some communication for us from us with like what we will need, if we need anything more from you, like abstract wise, for example, like stuff like that. So yeah, we'll probably in a week or two we'll be communicating with you. We can always try to make 1 or more 2 webinars as we just did right now. I think also, like, this is the one of the positive aspect of this whole COVID situation, that we are learning that it's like it's pretty easy basically to meet up with people, you know, and have a fruitful conversation. And that's actually very optimistic for me. So yeah, like so basically, as my concluding remark, I wanted to thank you all for the participation. I had really immense fun, you know, engaging in discussion with all of you, and yeah, I think we will do something nice together. I really feel like that.
Good reason. Yes, and if I may add something, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit tired. I'm also very happy, and thank you all very much for joining us, for being with us and talking with us about the publication, about the problems of COVID pandemic. And I think that it's very important for an academic community to stay in touch, to stay in contact, to have a possibility to discuss, to hear some intelligent people, as Mateusz said. Yes, it was a great experience for me. I was very stressed at the beginning, but now I can say that it was a great opportunity and a great experience for me. Thank you once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It was very
Thank you,
nice.
everybody. Yeah.
It was really great.
It was great meeting you all.
Hope to
Thank
meet
you.
you soon.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so you all stay safe, stay healthy, and hear you later, basically.
Hear you later.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.